Hey everyone. Josh, you're so excited.
I know, I do it to you every week. As soon as you're about to start, I just make like a stupid moose sound or something like, ah!
It's why our ADHD-ness is why we're like hetero life mates like Jay and Silent Bob. Just neither one of us is. Speaking of boobs, my wife is here. No. My wife just flashed me to mess with me.
Oh, okay. Speaking of boobs, okay.
We are Murder Moose. I'm Rod. That's Josh. I think is what our names are.
We switched it one week. I don't know if it ever switched back. So
okay, so I'm Josh and you're Rod.
Okay. I have no idea.
So we're here today with a special guest who has. We picked a movie, or I pitched a movie to her, and it's an experience, and we have a lot to talk about. And so today with us is the amazing Katie Peters, also known as Katie Peters Plays. What's up, friend?
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me, and thanks for making me watch this movie.
Hey, you got excited when you saw the trailer.
I did.
I didn't force you to watch it, although I was saying while we were starting, I was like, I hope Katie doesn't hate me after this.
No.
Hey, it's not a letdown. It's not a letdown.
I know it's not a letdown, but I almost felt like I was watching a porno with like Nazis and space sharks.
Okay, I mean, I think porno's a little strong.
I know.
There was some full frontal. I will give you that.
I was surprised, like how much like it's a movie about sharks, but they showed a lot of beaver too. So like
all animals got love in this movie.
There were a lot of animals that I was not expecting to see. Mm-hmm. Before we get into this masterpiece, though, Katie, you have your own podcast called Katie Hasn't Seen This, where you go through backlogs of movies, which is always entertaining because I found that as an adult that like movies that are, that get hyped up for a really long time and like have that like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. It ends up having a bad effect when watching them nowadays because it's hard to hold up to those like the stories and everything that you've heard about these movies. So how is it like? Do you ever get torn up, or do people give you shit for watching some of these movies and not enjoying them as much as like as others? All
the time. Essentially, my podcast has gotten a reputation of like, well, is Katie gonna rip apart my favorite movie this week? I don't know if it's the nostalgia. Like, I love the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, which I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But, like, I had a friend watch it recently, and he was like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, excuse me, did you not just watch this masterpiece? But I think that with Katie Hasn't Seen That, it's movies like Forrest Gump, or, like, I just watched Footloose. Like, movies that everybody's already seen that I haven't. And some people, I watched Poltergeist, and I upset some folks, because I really didn't like Poltergeist. And that was someone's childhood favorite movie, and I ruined their day.
But that's where it comes in different, though, because you're seeing it in 2021 or 2020, and it's like you have no ties to these films. They grew up with it, so they saw it at a different time where it holds up better with time, or at that time probably, right? So with you coming in fresh with whatever expectations you have on a movie, and CGI has gotten exponentially better, so I don't know.
I try to give credit where credit's due, like when they do a good job with stuff, because I'm usually, when I'm watching these movies, I'm sitting there, I'm taking notes, I'm like analyzing the movie too, so I'm probably watching it harder. I don't know if that's a way to say it. I'm watching the movie harder than maybe an average moviegoer, so I try to like give it some slack, but sometimes I can't give any of these movies slack. They're just not. They don't mesh with me.
Well, you're also like Josh. Josh does film stuff, but you went to school for a year. You talk about it on your podcast for like film stuff, right? And so like you talk about going and doing you did a whole year of like film like stuff in school, right? So like your perspective is also like different from a lot of casual audience people, right?
Yeah, my whole goal was I was going to be a cinematographer, and so I went to school for media theater arts, and then I remember freshman year, the end of the year, they had this MTA 102. This group of people from Hollywood came in and talked to us about how they were like living paycheck to paycheck, and some of them just seemed so depressed, and it like sobered me up, and I was like, I regret it. I kind of wish I had stuck with it, but I think 18-year-old me was terrified of like whatever that meant, seeing these like 5 grown adult men seem very unhappy and so
broken by the world.
Yeah, so I was like, so I changed my degree to psych, but I still like dabbled in that, and I still like to mess around and do it as like a hobby, but I don't obviously do it as a career. So I do try. I think I do watch movies with maybe a different lens, but
yeah,
I enjoy picking apart movies. I don't know what that means.
Well, once you know how the layers go together, like when it's like a cook or something, like when they're tasting your meal, they're a cook. They know all the techniques, what was supposed to go. That's how I watch all movies. It's like I know what style of light they're using over there. I know that this is, like I get pulled out of movies in weird situations because I love overanalyzing the technical side of things, and that's why I don't get scared in horror movies, because it's like, oh, that was a sick gag. How the fuck did they do that? It's like I saw this here and that, and like I look for the glue and all that stuff, and I don't know.
I can relate to that, but don't you like sometimes wish that you could get lost in a movie, like someone who's just like an awe-inspired by it, and I'm like, oh well, they did this and then they did that, and then it's like you don't have that don't have that movie magic lens. Sometimes I have to forcefully put those on to be like, just enjoy it for what it is.
I don't know. It's been so long since I've had that experience that I don't know. Like the more I've worked on short films and stuff, the more I don't have the ability to see it like that anymore, because I want to continue pushing myself forward. So I look at it not even as like in a critical way, but more as like, how did they do that? I need to know it. And I don't know, like when I saw The Matrix for the first time, it was like, oh my God. Like, and then you see the behind the scenes and they're like creating new ways of making movies. And I was like, this is the best. Like
behind the scenes.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I've done, like, there are movies that as a horror person I watched real late in life. Like I didn't see Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time until like last year.
I haven't seen it yet.
So this is okay.
It's a good movie.
I follow some people. It's a movie that like you could watch now and
it holds up because it's terrifying.
It holds up, but it also doesn't have that. It isn't what a lot of people made it out to be. I kind of compare it to what The Exorcist gets compared to, like how people are like, The Exorcist is the scariest movie ever made, and I'm like, I really enjoy it, but it didn't scare me
either.
Yeah, and because you see it when you're like, older, it's just like it doesn't, it loses some of that magic, and that's why your podcast is so entertaining to me, because it's that look from the outside where you're like, well, this is like, this long ago, and we don't do as many old movies on this podcast because we're doing a lot of foreign and independent stuff that's newer, but like when we do, it's like always entertaining. We talked about Black Christmas like last Christmas time. And Black Christmas is one of those movies that gets called a like one of the first slasher movies, as like because of the girls in the sorority house and whatever. And that movie is so culturally significant that it's been remade badly twice now at this point. But like it's one of those things where that movie can hold up and mean a lot. But like I don't know. I just don't get scared by movies very often. Like especially when I'm not in the theater, sitting there watching it with a bunch of people. And I think that's a big part of movies being terrifying, right? Is like,
but the whole premise of like just you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't know, like the people that are secluded like that, it's always so terrifying to me, just like driving and seeing like an old farm. It's just like you don't know if there's like a Texas Chainsaw guy living there for no reason, but like I don't know, like you're out in the middle of nowhere, you think you can trust humanity for help, and they end up skinning you alive. It's like Nocturnal Animals, like that premise of that part where, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there's like a part where the family's like driving in middle of nowhere and like in between cities, and they get like pulled over by this just bunch of crazy dudes, and they steal the family away from the husband. And I'm just like,
what movie is this?
Nocturnal Animals. It's like that premise to me, and like seeing them get kidnapped away from you and you get left there just to be like, Oh my God, like that is the most terrifying thing I could ever think of in my life. Just like, hey, we're going to drive to Disneyland, family. And like, if that happened, oh my God. Like,
I don't know if you've ever seen
Josh-
Breakdown from the 90s. I think it's
No.
Kurt
No.
Russell. And that movie, I don't know. I love 90s movies. I feel like I don't get enough recommendations for good 90s movies. But that movie I saw as a kid and it scared me.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, is it Kurt Russell? I have to look it up.
Yeah, it is. Kurt Russell. Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie just, I feel like it's that whole premise of your car breaks down, bad things happen. And like that is
Yeah.
horrifying when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Just not having
Yeah.
that control. I feel like there's certain
It
things
could
that
happen
scare
to
me.
you.
Yeah, it could. We watched a movie
Yeah.
called Unhinged that Russell Crowe was in. It just came out like last year.
Yeah.
And it was
It's like road rage,
yeah,
right?
it's about road rage. And I had a
Yeah.
road rage incident that happened to me when I worked at an ice cream shop. I was leaving work for the night and I'm driving home, and this is in the backwoods of New England. So there's this car that passed me, and a 16-year-old me was like, I'm going to honk. And so I honked, and then I come up over this crest, and the car is on an angle waiting for me. And then I just freak out. So I drive around this car, and I'm like, just get home. And I'm on this back road where like the speed limit was 35 miles per hour, and this car just tailed me, and we were speeding like 70 miles an hour, and I was so afraid. I called my cell
Yeah.
phones had just come out. If that's dating me, I don't
Yeah.
care. But like, I remember
I'm older than you, so it's
yeah,
okay.
so I called my dad and I was like, this person's chasing me. And I think it went on for 5-6 miles, which doesn't seem like that long, but it
But,
felt like
yeah,
eternity.
In that case, yeah,
So
yeah.
any movie with road rage or any sort of like scary people in cars really terrifies
Yeah.
me.
Well, so
I've
you don't
had-
like joy?
Oh my God. Like I had some like dudes like really tailing me or like right up my ass. And I was just like, what the hell are these guys doing? So I tap on my brakes just to like get them to back up a bit. And then they got so pissed off and came up around me and started doing it to me and like making me like I had to slam on my brakes like 8 different times. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die right
Yes.
now. I had like my old girlfriend in the passenger seat with me, and she was like just losing her mind. And I'm just like, oh shit, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this situation. When we get to like this lights so I could turn, and they were going to keep going, and to diffuse the situation, I just looked at them and gave them a thumbs up like, haha, that was fun. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they just went, but they were ready to get out of their cars and like kill me.
Yeah.
But because I was like, good times, guys, they were like, okay, cool, and went on their way. I was like, oh my God, I almost died.
Yeah.
So, Katie, you could add Joyride to your list.
Okay,
I don't
I'll
know if
write it
you-
down.
No,
Because I've not seen
Joyride
that.
with Paul Walker and
Yeah, Paul Walker.
and
That's a good one,
what's
actually.
his name? Steve something. So my story that you guys are reminding me of. My wife and I were down in Colorado Springs when we first moved to Colorado, and we were on the big highway, and this guy cut us off, and then I don't even know, he got mad at us for some reason, and he gets in the lane next to us, and he's so busy like looking over us like I'm gonna kill you kind of fuck it off.
Yeah.
That he slammed into a car in that lane. And my wife was like waved at him and I was like, well, you're a maniac. Like, this is the kind of stuff. Like, my wife finds these situations apparently because she works at a Home Depot right off the highway, and she was outside working like a month and a half ago, and these two guys had gotten into an incident on the highway and pulled off into this Home Depot. And the one guy is like waving a gun around in the parking lot, and my wife like laughed. At him.
No.
I'm in Canada. I don't see stuff like that.
We have this thing here called guns for no reason, Josh. It's a very different thing in America.
Although I'm in Alberta, and the government here is really stupid. So stupid that other provinces are now closing their borders to us, Albertans. Like, seriously. They're like, what is your government doing? Yeah, you're not allowed to come here. Like, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
I sometimes think that would help with states in this country, just like to keep like people out of Florida, or like, Florida is like a real bad place right now. If you don't know,
Isn't it always the
COVID
butt of the jokes for like all of America anyways?
It is. I mean, it is, but there's a lot of like things to joke about in the South, and Florida just ends up being the butt of a lot of them. But they're not even.
They're calling us the Texas of Canada now.
Oh wow!
Like, yeah, like the government is doing such stupid things. They're calling Alberta the Texas of Canada.
Canada's Canada. At least they're recognizing you guys are out of control and stopping your insanity.
I work from home and have for 10 years, and I'm happy as hell now that I do. So there's some weirdos out there now, man.
I mean, look at me. I mean, that's besides the point, but no. So, Kate, I do have to say the one movie that I'm like, I was like a little bummed that you didn't like, but I understand was Pulp Fiction. You weren't like you.
I know.
So I think that's another one of those movies that I saw when I was a teenage boy, and it might have registered a little too much with me, and my overly my fascination with Tarantino after that. I almost said Quentin. I don't know. I can't
know,
speak
man.
English.
Like I love a lot of his movies, but I feel like there's too much of a boner for Quentin Tarantino now, and his latest movies haven't been like that good, but he still gets like the praise and the Oscar buzz and all that stuff. It's just because he's a name now, and I hate that. I have this like weird thing with like brands too. Like I'm in marketing, have been forever, so I don't like brands. I see through all the bullshit, and if it's too expensive, it's just like it's the exact same as that brand. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, and I see that the same way with like filmmakers too. Once they get to a certain point, it's just like they're that now, and it doesn't matter if they do bad. No one's gonna tell them they do bad anymore because they are too big or something. I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, you have M. Night Shyamalan because he did Sixth Sense, is like continuously given, like Old just came out and it doesn't, like everything I've heard about it doesn't sound great.
I feel like he gets the, I mean, Sixth Sense.
He gets the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, Sixth Sense was a great movie, but he has made some stinkers since
Yes,
then.
he has.
He tries though. He's trying. I mean, Unbreakable was decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The others maybe not so much, but
yeah. I rage about
Split was good, but then that third one was terrible.
Yeah. I just complain about Signs all the time because I go, why would aliens whose only weakness being water invade a planet that is 70% water when you're smart enough to travel the fucking galaxy?
Like 3/4 of that movie is fucking amazing.
That's true.
Like it's so good, and then it just he shat all over his own freaking almost masterpiece. I felt like I was that one scene where it's just the shadow of the alien going by terrified me for years, like because it's the more of the unknown look than anything, and then as soon as you see it at the end and it's like this weird claymation fucking like you fucking ruined it, man.
Monster reveals can ruin a movie, and that was one of those.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, it's I say all the time, the two scariest movies for me of all time for me that fucked me over the most were Blair Witch Project and the first Paranormal Activity.
Same.
Because both of them, you see nothing the entire time, and you're just horrified by your own imagination. And I've said that on here probably 1,000 times at this point, but like
Paranormal Activity gave me actual nightmares. I woke up like screaming weirdly like that, and I've never done that ever before or after in my life. And Paranormal Activity fucked me up.
Didn't scare me. I don't know. I was prepared. I remember hunkering down like, I'm going to watch Paranormal Activity. And I was shocked because I was like, I don't know, demon stuff. And that's kind of heavily demon implied in that. So I was like, I'm not. And filmed at night while you're sleeping. And it didn't scare me. I was shocked.
Yeah. So
the movie itself didn't scare me. Afterwards, sleeping in my house alone scared me.
Yeah, I think that was like my wife and I went to see that at like midnight on the first night, like with a theater full of people. So that's like those midnight screenings, which don't occur as much anymore because of things like the Batman incident. But it's like that midnight. that thing was so fucked up. My wife afterwards was like, "We're going to Walmart and you're buying me a fucking comedy, and we're gonna watch a comedy."
That's what my wife makes me do too. Like she cannot do ghost shit, and anytime, like, I just love it all, whatever. But she needs to like cleanse the palate after. It's like, put a comedy on now. Yep, put it on. I can't. I'm just like, okay, sorry.
Katie, you have like you partook in one of the most emotionally scarring things I've ever watched in Nocturne, and I never actually even I got to like the 30s and I was like, this is gonna end up badly, and I think I think I like stepped away for a while because I was like, this, I don't know if I could handle the trauma to my like system. Like she was in this role playing show on Table Stories Twitch page, and it was like 36 episodes I think is what they ended up being, and there were episodes, man, where I was like crying like a fucking baby just watching this, and it was like, it was all just so good, but the horror and all the sci-fi and the like, very kind of like because they had the element of repeating itself, like, which was very cool. But that was one of the first times that like I saw your stuff, Katie, and it was like, oh my god, all these people are so talented, and I was like, and Katie, all these people, like, I was like, you completely went into Katie's like a very comes off as a very sweet and like not saying you're not, but like in that show you were like you had your tattoo sleeves and your piercings and everything like that, and I was like, man, everyone here is hardcore, and it was such good acting, and it was an interesting thing. So that's kind of where I met I was kind of introduced to you, Katie. So it's kind of like it's been horror related like the whole time I've like been in your community and stuff. So.
I'm glad you liked it. I mean that show was, I love playing in horror, like video games and tabletop, and so I mean it's always an honor to hear that anybody like was emotional based on something that I was in, because I mean that's like means it touched you in some way, so that's pretty damn cool. But I know like horror is where it's at. I play a lot of scary games, and I think that's why I don't get as scared with movies either, because I'm so like exposed to it.
I've never been successfully scared playing a horror game. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm having to do too much, but like even the jump scares, just like, oh yeah, okay, like onto the where's the thing I was supposed to pick up? Fuck, like that's all I'm thinking about.
The game that has messed with me the most was Alien Isolation, and a lot of that had to do with I had like scare alerts turned on, and so my community was also screaming loud noises at me the whole time, so that fucked with me like really heavily. But like, I don't get scared playing games most of the time. Like, although I did kind of want to throw shit playing that Five Nights at Freddy in VR game, like because you're sitting there.
VR
and, like,
might actually do it to me, like because then it would be like right up in my face.
Dude, there was an Exorcist VR game too that like had a couple parts that were like pretty horrifying, like because it's weird. Like I almost threw my controllers across the room, like one room, like in that game, because you're like shit just pops out and it looks like you're standing in that room with it, and you're like, "Wah!" And it's just like, yeah. So, Katie, what is your favorite horror movie of all time? I'm just kind of seeing what like what is the one that is registered, or you don't have to name one, a couple if you have a couple if you can't.
I mean, I talk a lot about on my stream and just in general Jaws, because Jaws scarred me, but I don't think Jaws is my favorite horror movie. I think I recently, in the last couple of years, rewatched Event Horizon, and that movie messed me up as a kid because I watched it way too young, and then but now as an adult, I love sci-fi and I love horror. And that movie, I'm like, this speaks to me. It's a really well done, I guess,
the special effects don't hold up.
No,
though.
they
That's
don't.
The only thing they don't at all.
they when I was a kid, I remember believing like that's a thing that happened. I can't sleep. That was one of those movies that kept me up at night. And I don't know, I really like that one, but I really feel like movies that tie in science and space and horror make me happy, but like I don't know, I feel like it's hard to choose one horror film that defines you.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I like your sensibility is very like aligned with mine, because my favorite movie of all time is still Alien.
Nice.
And then The Thing is right there, and I love The Thing. I probably watched in the last 5 years The Thing more than any other movie, because that movie is so like well done. And then The Fly is another one that I fucking love. Like sci-fi horror is like, as you're saying, I mean, it's like, it's right there for me. And that stuff is kind of like registers. And I think that stuff kind of gets, it kind of gets underrated. Like it kind of like I think that corner of horror doesn't get as much credit as it should.
No.
It's actually I have a running joke where people bust my balls because I think it was Classy Katie. I told her that Terminator is a slasher film, or I told my community
Terminator
that, and then they told her, and they're like, "Oh, no, Rod, you're insane!" And they just laugh at me, and they think like it's the biggest joke in the world. And be like, it's just because the term slasher doesn't mean it's like you have to kill things with a knife. It's a stalker running around killing people because it's like and it's a machine, but you can have machine, whatever. But so I love sci-fi horror, so Event Horizon is one of those movies that is, I don't know like how late after it came out I saw it, but it's highly enjoyable, and one of those movies where you go, fuck, I wish I would have seen the like actual cut of that movie that they cut out like 45 minutes and then like
they lost
had
it. It like got
in a Transylvania mine or something like that.
Guy.
It's like insane like story. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, that's where the 45 minutes went, and it was like one of the podcasts on our network that we've had on as guests, they're called Dead in Santa Carla, and they did a whole episode about that, and they were talking about how like they gave that movie like $60 million, which is insane for a horror movie, and a guy that's like that was his first movie. So you're putting on this movie, and then you come in and you just chop the shit out of it at the end, and you're like
I have
take 45 minutes out.
I have a soft spot. I think it's Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yep.
He did that. And he did all the Resident Evil movies, which they're not cinematic classics, but I do enjoy them. They're pretty fun.
We watched all of them besides the last one. I don't think we ever saw the last one.
I haven't seen the last
my wife got mad.
Those are the my husband was at the store and he sent me a picture of a DVD box set of all the Resident Evil movies. He's like, do you want me to buy this? Because I haven't seen the last two. And I was like, yes, please. So it's sitting on by my TV now. And I'm like, I can watch the last two movies.
The last two, I don't know. Like they just kind of like, I still like them, but I feel like they're a rinse and repeat now at that point. They all kind of meshed into one, but I feel the same way about like the Harry Potters. It's like when you see them and it's like there's 7 of them, but can you tell me what happened in which one if you're not like a huge Harry Potter fan? Like I'm not huge, but I still liked them individually, but like when there's that many, I don't know what the fuck happened. It's like maybe it's all one at that point.
It's all like Fast and Furious is like pre-rock movies and like post-rock movies, and then like again post-rock again, or like whatever. It's like it's all these things.
I don't know, man. Like I think slasher films are my favorite genre of horror, but my favorite horror movie of all time is a comedy horror. Army of Darkness is one that I've watched. I had that on VHS, and I would put it in like my little TV I had in my room, and I would watch that every night before I went to bed in like high school and right when I moved out and stuff. So I've seen Army of Darkness, I think, probably over 100 times. So yeah, I don't know. I can quote that movie backwards and forwards. I love my Ash.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, Bruce Campbell is a lovely, lovely human being, and if you don't like him, there's a we talked about it before. There's a movie called Bubba Hotep, Katie. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Where
no, I haven't.
Bruce Campbell he plays Elvis, but
an impersonator.
Elvis he basically paid someone to take his the concept is he paid somebody to take his place so he can lay on the low for a while, and then that guy died. And so now, like, he took all his money with him and everything like that. And so now it's Elvis in a nursing home, like, getting close to the end. And his best friend is an old black guy who claims he was JFK, and that, like, they hid it, like, faked his death and then made him black.
And then he goes into a lookalike contest of Elvis and gets, like, 3rd place or something.
Oh, my gosh.
And then a mummy comes in and starts eating old people's souls.
It's really funny.
It's the most insane movie of all time. Maybe besides Sky Sharks, but it's up there.
Okay, I'll have to add that one to the list too.
It's so good. I have a toy on my wall of Bubba Hotep.
When did this come out? Is it recent?
Long time ago.
Okay.
It had to be in the early 2000s.
Gotcha.
So it's one of those. We watch a lot of strange shit, Katie. It's like
that's sometimes where you find the best stuff. 2002. That was a good year, I think, for movies. The early 2000s had some gems.
Oh yeah.
We've been obsessed with a movie called it's on Shudder now, Katie, called Psycho Gorman, which is a comedy horror movie that is about this little like 11-year-old girl who finds this stone that basically controls this like alien dictator that kind of got like taken out of control.
Canadian
he got taken out of
made too.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
And so like he's gonna come, like he gets unearthed, and this little girl finds his like stone that controls him, and then it's like hilarity ensuing while that kind of stuff, and it's very you'd probably enjoy it too if you next time you get Shudder to check.
I might have to get Shudder after just everything we've talked about today, just because there sounds like there's a lot of stuff I need to catch up on.
Massive fans of Shudder on this show for sure.
There's a lot of Shudder references. That's the only ones that I think we've talked about that's on Shudder at this exact moment. But there's like Shudder's like done some cool stuff. I mean, they did Host. I don't know if you ever watched Host.
Yes,
that came out last
year. The one that was like the Zoom horror movie.
Yeah. So well done.
Yeah, that was Josh and I recorded our like test episode, and it was that, and we talked about it. But it was like that was so good, and like Shudder just like
it did everything that you've seen before, but then it actually turned it up to 11, and I wasn't expecting them to turn it up to 11, and I was like, whoa, like it was some gnarly stuff.
Yeah. Shudder does a lot that's like just cool for horror fans, because I think that like often like things like Netflix and Amazon like just chuck a bunch of not high quality stuff onto it, and then Shudder's like okay,
the Tomorrow War.
You really do not like that movie. Josh has been shitting all over it since he saw it.
The trailer for it, and I was like, I'm good. So I don't think I'm gonna watch it, because it does seem pretty like. Yeah. I feel like if I was 10 years ago, I've been like, I want to watch this. And now I'm like, I don't have time. So I selectively like choose what I watch now.
Yeah. That's like being an adult, right? Like we're like, it's like working 40 hours a week, and you're doing like streaming and all the other things. You're like, it's the same thing with me. Like I don't have time to sit there and watch shit that like, and sometimes when a movie's over like 90 minutes, I put on Last Action Hero last night because it was on HBO Max, and I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Oh my god!
And I'm like,
that's one of my. That movie is like my inception point from being a kid to being a filmmaker, because that movie. Yeah. I had to after that.
If you've never seen that one, Katie, it's okay.
Write it down.
It's the last time I saw that movie, I think I was way too young and you like to appreciate what it is, but it's very meta. Like it's very like you see. I
saw
so
it in
much
the
stuff
theaters.
In it.
I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, it's very over the top, but it's also very like
it's so perfectly 90s action in a all encompassed.
And
in
I'm
one
all
movie.
about that. I love 90s actions movie. Wait, I'm adding S's relation.
90s action. There's an S in there somewhere.
90s action movies. Like I just watched Speed, and it was ridiculous in some. But
good.
I was like, I love this. Like it's just that kind of stuff speaks to me. So I wrote that down.
It's like, well, so the 80s were such like. They were just masculine movies, like I'm testosterone 80s movies, and then
that's
they
why Die Hard
was
so good though, because it finally put all that on its head and was like, no, he's not any of that, and that's why after Die Hard, every movie was trying to be Die Hard because it was fucking Die Hard.
I mean, Die Hard is probably if you all time is probably the movie I've seen the most times is Die Hard.
I watch
but
it every
it's
year.
Like. Yeah, I mean, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's our Christmas Eve movie that we watched.
It's Die Hard a Christmas movie, Katie. I'm just curious.
I have some friends who are very upset about the argument of is Die Hard a Christmas movie, and so we've come up with a phrase called it's Christmas adjacent. So it's a Christmas adjacent movie, but I think it's kind of a holiday movie because it's a Christmas party. And there's holiday, like there's Christmas stuff in it.
It ends with a Christmas song in the credits. Yeah. Like it's a fucking Christmas movie. Yeah. It totally is.
Ho ho ho
ho ho
ho ho ho. Now I have a machine gun. And so there's a lot of stuff. Like I think I told you recently you should put Demolition Man on your list because it's also 90s action and like it's got that vibe of that time that you seem to really like, and it nails it. It's like that. It's real, it's hokey, but 90s hokey, which is, the
kind of
best,
the best thing ever.
Stallone Snipes.
I mean, so I think I'm a couple years older than you, Katie, and I think you and Josh are closer in age. So it's like we all grew up in that very, very like, where everything like that was so important. Like it was like to us because like you're young and like Arnold was still like giant and like You like have
Jingle
all
All the
that
Way.
Stuff, like,
Oh my god, I watch that every year too. I love that movie.
It's a good one.
Put the cookie down. Put the cookie down. Oh, it's that movie. You watch it now though, you go, holy shit! Phil Hartman was a fucking creep in that movie.
Was.
Like, yeah.
And I love Phil Hartman, and I'm so sad that he died. But there was another movie called Houseguest with Sinbad and Phil Hartman. Yeah. And I cannot find that to watch anywhere because it's like obscure. But I remember seeing that over and over as a kid. And so I need to find that and I need to watch it. Maybe I haven't looked hard enough.
Hey, maybe you don't need to see it. Like maybe it's one of those things, Katie. If you saw it again, it would like break your reality. It would be like
there are movies that do that.
That one.
Yeah.
It's called Houseguest, right?
Yeah, 1995. I remember that movie. Yeah.
Like nobody has like really heard about it, and I'm like, this movie for whatever reason has stuck with me for years. Because I remember Sinbad pretended to be somebody that he wasn't, and then there was crime, and Phil Hartman was like the nicest guy ever. Which
is funny because in Jingle All the Way, fucking Sinbad is basically a terrorist. Like he's threatening cops with bombs and like just because he wants his fucking toy, which I understand. But Jesus Christ, you were a bad man in that movie, Sinbad, and yet Arnold's the bigger dude and like helps him in the long run, and
it all worked out kind of in the end.
Yeah, everything worked out like as everything does. It's the 90s, man, the 90s. So yeah. The 90s were a lot with that kind of stuff where it's like that stuff was just it was just for pure entertainment, right? And that had come off of the 80s which was cocaine overindulgence, everything, right? And that's why like American Psycho, right? American Psycho kind of captured that. If you've never seen American
that one is
Psycho
also
either.
on the list. I feel like all of these movies you're mentioning, I'm like, I haven't seen that. Have you heard of Houseguest with Sinbad?
Yeah, I hadn't, but Josh has, so it's okay.
I remember that from when I was a kid, for sure. Like, I don't know.
It's a lot of that stuff is just like.
I've wanted to see American Psycho, but I've heard that it's really creepy. That's like the only thing really have heard about it.
It's very violent and it's very like extreme because it's the idea of it.
But it's one of those like movies that is put on people's lists as like a masterpiece and stuff too. But it's like subject matter is fucked up for sure.
Yeah,
he goes full psycho in that movie for sure.
It's very overindulgence, which is very like what was the movie I think is set in the 80s, right? Like, but like
I love that scene where he's talking about his business card and then the other guy comes out and he's just like and like they're the exact same business card, but that guy's just got like a little bit thicker paper and like the way he's describing it in his head it's so fucking ridiculous, but I love it.
That's why that Ice Nine Kills song they just did about that movie is so good. And so there's this band called Ice Nine Kills, Katie, which does metal-y stuff, but they had a whole album that came out in 2018, and all their songs like they're all like made about horror movies. Like there was like one about Halloween, one about Friday the 13th. That
sounds cool.
But they just put out an American Psycho song, and they do these really elaborate videos that come along with them, and they're like.
You showed me that one, and I was like, that was like way too ridiculously well done. Like way too well done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've been putting off this nightmare of what was
this cinematic masterpiece known as Sky.
The cinematic masterpiece.
What are you talking about?
I'm just kidding.
If it was just you and me, would you feel different?
No, it just wasn't what I expected. I really did. This movie was fun. It was insane and not what I expected in some aspects, but it was fun. I'm not going to say it wasn't fun.
If you are fucking in this movie, you're getting something in your head so it splatters on the woman you are having sex with. That happened like 6 times in this movie. Seriously, people are having sex and then the guy's head just explodes onto the woman. It doesn't make any sense that it had to happen more than once, but it happened seriously like 4, 5, 6 times. I don't know. It was crazy.
Josh, I want me to read the synopsis of this movie so all our listeners can go into what we are talking about.
Deep in the ice of Antarctica. Antarctic? A team of geologists uncover an old Nazi lab. What did I say? What was I going to say there?
I don't know, Josh.
Whatever.
I have no idea.
Still intact. Dark experiments had occurred. In order to conquer the world, the Nazis create modified sharks who were able to fly and whose riders are genetically mutated undead superhumans. A military task force called Dead Flesh 4 reanimated U.S. soldiers who fell in Vietnam is put together to prevent world downfall. So I gotta ask, who is that main old dude like in the movie? Because his
Richter?
Yeah,
Thomas-
it's Dr. Klaus Richter. Yeah, Thomas Morris.
Why did they put so much like old man makeup on him? Like I'm looking at
He was like
it the
115, wasn't he? Is like
Okay.
didn't they kept
Yeah.
saying like
Okay.
he's like every time he injected himself, it was like
Yeah.
you are 115 years old or something like that.
They like, you have to remember, he's really old because like, yeah,
It looked
because
so bad though. Like
yeah,
He couldn't
For a
move his
movie
mouth
this
very
heavy-
easily.
Yeah. Like every shot was special effects. Like every single shot
Yeah.
of this movie was a special effect, but in the way that like Kung Fury is made. So like it's all green screen, but Kung Fury did it the exact same kind of style, but 10 times better, obviously, because it's Kung Fury. But I don't know, man. I can't hate this movie all the way because it was
No.
like there's so much done really well in this, like all the
Yeah.
special effects and like motion graphics and like text coming up on like it's done better than a lot of like more expensive movies for
Yeah.
in that respect. But then you could totally see the like lack of depth in a lot of it, but whatever.
I mean, when we like said we're going to watch this, no one expected a cinematic masterpiece, like, right? It
No.
was never going to be like. I think that like you have this thing where you kind of, I think Sharknado has kind of set up a expectation for these kinds of movies, right? Like, this is like what you would get if you made Sharknado on like HBO instead of like sci-fi, right? There's like blood and guts and boobs, as we talked about, and a lot of boobs, but and I think that like there are a lot of shots in this movie are actually done really well, like you're talking about, like shot really well, and like
Yeah.
others are like they have like good lines and like some comedy shit. I think that like the opening scene takes place on this airplane, and I'm like, everything looks pretty decent until they show the airplane.
Holy
where you're like,
shit!
The airplane is CG, and you're like, dude, that fucking
Oh yeah,
that priest who's the
Holy
priest who's been
shit!
in everything. Yeah, like his speech at the beginning were about kicking, like the devil was like
in his house,
like shitting in his toilet or whatever he's saying. He's like, he was leaving logs in my toilet, and that guy was in like, fuck, I think he was in something like Dexter or like, you know, like The Shield, the old Michael Chiklis show on FX or something like that. Like I knew that guy from somewhere, and I'm like, this guy is
He's in a bunch of stuff.
yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. It's funny though, like the only like actor I knew in this movie was Tony
Yeah,
Todd.
I was like, Candyman's in this.
Yeah,
yeah.
Totally.
I was like sitting there and I'm like, this man,
Yeah.
I haven't seen Candyman's been on my list forever. And I've watched the trailer recently and I was like, that's Candyman. And I was honestly like, he wasn't the president. He was just like
no, he was a general, like the
a general that
yeah.
didn't fucking care
none of them
about
like
the president.
He is, dude. That is another movie. Like the early '90s horror wise were really, really bad. Like really bad. And Candyman is one of those movies that like legitimately stands out for that time frame, and it has a lot of the, especially like now. Like I watched that I think for the first time last year, but like all the racial stuff that happens, you know, in this movie that like in this country, I should say, and you go, that movie has that thing where it kind of pokes at that, and I think it's underappreciated for what it does, especially for the slasher, you know, genre. It has a lot of like cool kills, and the character's cool, and I mean, like if you grew up like when we were kids, like that thing was like, I don't know, Bloody Mary. You know Bloody Mary, right? The whole like you look into the mirror and say Bloody Mary, and they took that and made it Candyman, and that fucking scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, man.
I saw
And,
that one young too, but I
Yeah.
love that movie.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the new one, which Jordan Peele is like producing, he's not directing it. It looks like it's going to be cool. They look like they're rebooting a lot of what the legend is and what the like basis of this character is. But
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching, Katie. It's one of the few highlights of that early 90s, because that's like when you were getting like that's when you were starting to transition, and like you were getting Amityville like 9 at that point and shit, like you like fucking Leprechaun was going into space and shit like that, and like but that was like stood out for
but
like,
90s
how high quality.
Scream stands out for me because I love that franchise so
Me too.
much. Like that was one that scared the shit out of me when it first came out too, because I think it was like a sleepover movie for me. I was like at Ben's house sleeping over, and we watched Scream, and then I was like, "What's that out the window, man?"
Yeah.
Talking about being out in the middle of nowhere, like because that house is out in the middle, which actually Mike Flanagan just did. Not just, but one of his earlier movies called Hush.
Oh yeah, I've seen
seen
Hush. That's actually a pretty good one.
Dude, Hush is dope.
We should do that on the show. We should do it.
Yeah, we could do that at some point. I mean, it's worth it because
that's been on my list. That and Creep 1 and 2. I've heard all three of those movies are so good, and they're on my list. And I want to just like put it to the show so I fucking watch.
Have you seen it, Rod? Creep? Okay,
Yeah,
I've had that one on my list, and every time I watch like a trailer for it to see like, oh, do I want to watch this tonight? I'm like, I don't know. It just like nothing grabs me, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, same.
It's a very awkward horror where it's very like you're building up this thing where you don't know what's happening, and it's very like set on this premises where it's this director is like gets paid to come do this filming of this guy because he says he's dying, and all this weird shit keeps happening. And in the first one, the second one, it's the same character, so you know what's up with it, and it gets really creepy. And the guy like who's in it is like known for like comedy,
he's a comedic actor. That's what I've
he was on The League and shit like that. And so it's very unsettling, and it's that it's another we talked about a movie called The Stylist a little while back where it's got this really socially awkward kind of like character in the movie, and it's not that movie was like did it for the whole time, but this has the Creep has elements of that where you're just like, I don't like this guy because he's kind of like, you know, he's like
a creep.
You just like you don't know if he's creep, exactly. And the title is perfect for it, and yeah, it's worth watching for sure. I like the second one too, but like you have to know if you like the first one. If you like the first one, I assume you'll like the second one. So so they're both worth going into. It was funny with this movie where just like every single character on it was like completely. It seemed like everyone was hamming it up. I was a little confused. The thing that the main like the guy that we're talking about a little bit ago, the Dr. Klaus Richter, he's like a German scientist. Guys, we're gonna spoil what you call a plot, but don't let that like ruin. We don't need to, because this movie has a plot, but it's really just an excuse to get to giant sky sharks. Yeah. He has these two daughters who are both like in their 40s, but they're like or 30s, but they both have German accents, even though they were raised in America. It seems like because the guy came to America after World War II and would have had to have been around for like.
Listen,
like
there are a lot of plot holes. Okay.
Yeah, there were
tons.
Oh, okay, am I crazy? Did they ever get rid of the ship? The ship that they found, and then it was like floating like 10 minutes in.
It just disappeared.
Didn't it fall into the crevice?
I think. Yeah, I think so. But like everything just like went invisible cloak at that point too. So I was like,
yeah.
Well, did you stay for the mid-credit scene?
Yeah,
no, I didn't know there was.
I did.
There was
a
mid.
Yeah.
So I don't think any. I mean, I think they were setting up a sequel.
Yeah, 100%. I wasn't expecting that either, because like I was so disappointed with how it ended. Like it was just like, oh, okay, well, it's wrapped up.
We won. Yeah, we won.
It was like,
I was like, wait, what?
We beat the 5 sharks in the sky. Guess we're done here.
Yeah,
I know.
Credits. And I was happy that there was a mid-credit scene because of how the fuck it ended. I was just like, That's how you're gonna end it? Like, I feel like it was a 3/4 thing. I don't know. There wasn't a wrap up enough.
Did you stay till the full end of the credits though?
No,
I didn't. 2 of them
at the end of the credits. So I just was like, I'm doing the long haul with this. So I went all the way to the end. This was very Grindhouse. That's how I felt like this movie. And they had a trailer for Sky Frogs where a woman was naked and fighting with sky. Like she was, I don't remember what happened, but she crashed on an island and then she's just naked and fighting sky frogs. But at the beginning of the movie, the German man is watching this trailer. So it was like the full trailer played at the end of the credits. And I kind of want to Google now to see if Sky Frogs is coming or in pre-production or something because...
it reminds me, like, that's the vibe of this movie, Katie. I think you kind of nailed it. Like the mid-trailer things during Grindhouse that, like, one of them became Machete. It's kind of that, like, it is. I think Grindhouse is probably like a really, really perfect way to put this because that's why the excessive
naked on
nudity.
The poster for Sky Frogs.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's an actual movie though.
No, it's just it goes to Sky Sharks.
Yeah.
So what was the mid-credit sequence? What did they set up? I'm curious now because I did not experience this masterpiece.
Woman Nazi. What was the woman? I can't. She was talking in German, and then there was like a bunch of those like super soldiers. I don't know if they were. Were they on a boat?
Yeah, it was the boat.
They did
from
the action pose, like psh, where she came in. Yeah, every time she would land, it was like the action pose thing they made fun of in Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did that, and that was pretty much it. There was just a whole bunch of. It wasn't much, but it was It
was enough to tease. Maybe there might be more.
Yeah. Well, this is what like you guys pointed out. Like, so at the very end, they're all the news networks are talking about how like everywhere is being attacked. Like France, like the Eiffel Tower gets knocked down at some point, and then like you said, they have the megalodon shark, which probably was my favorite part of this whole movie. That like where you're like, oh, we're just gonna fucking like raise the stakes 10 times and bring out what the hell is going on.
Oh, why is it playing on here?
Josh, I can hear it.
I found the Sky Frogs thing.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Expect some more boobs.
Yeah. Man. So, okay. I have to ask because this is a very crucial plot point. What kind of airplane were these people on that they were able to, start, doing it? Like, I've never seen an airplane.
They were loud, too. How were they not stopped?
Well, the air marshal is like, oh, they just came from Europe. They got to be horny, is basically what he was saying.
And I'm like, well, why don't... a stewardess would have been like, excuse me, you can't do that. Like, not realistic.
Yeah. But, like...
Not realistic.
2 out of 10.
I'm 6'3", and I get into one of those airplane bathrooms, and I'm like, it's like crouching into a fucking sardine can, and I'm like, and these two were like fully just banging in there,
and the camera was in there too.
Yeah, and the camera is going in there. I'm like,
it was a set, guys. It was a set.
I have a question though about the periscope that exploded his head.
Yeah,
my husband was sitting next to me because he watched it with me. I'm like, you want to watch Sky Sharks with me? He's like, sure, we're in this together. But like when the periscope came down, he was like, he looked at me. He's like, was there like a buzzsaw in it? And I was like, no, I think it was just a periscope that exploded his head.
Yeah. Well, it like slammed through the top into his head, right? And you're like, how are they like? Because this happens 9 times in this movie where they like are sawing into airplanes and they don't get depressurized for some reason until they pull the what was that movie with the ship where all the people got cut in half at the very beginning and except for the little girl Ghost Ship.
Ghost Ship, yeah.
I forgot. I forgot about that movie.
Yeah.
I was like, I have a visceral memory of what you're talking about, but I could not place it.
Yeah,
that was when movies were just like so gory for like
that. Yeah, that was the time frame where they were doing like
Final Destination 2.
Yeah, and
so gory. Oh,
like
I was
13
gonna say
Ghosts and stuff like that.
Yeah, 13 Ghosts was another. Yeah, like those two I get mixed up because they came out like the same time. And didn't they both have Matthew Lillard in it, or am I mistaken? I don't know.
I think Matthew Lillard was in. I know he was in 13
He
Ghosts.
was.
I don't know about. Yeah.
I don't know, but like Final Destination 2, 2? That's the one with the log thing?
Yes. I've recently watched them because I really like those movies. They're so scary. And like every time I see a truck hauling logs, I'm like, I'm going to die today.
Oh, yeah. Well, we live close to that. We're in mountain time, right? So anytime I go to BC, that's what you see. Like, you see the freaking big log trucks, and I'm like, no, I'm getting in front of you. Screw you. Final Destination.
The problem with that is, as you guys know, it's like that shit just chucks rocks. And like in Colorado, if you don't have a cracked windshield, you're doing something wrong. And I just avoid them because of that. Those fucking cracked windshields are just. Literally years ago, I went home to visit my family, and like I had a cracked windshield, and my mom was like, "I'll get you a new windshield. It's like a couple $100." I'm like, "Okay." And as I was driving back like to Colorado, got another rock chucked off my window. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding?"
I got a crack in my windshield the day I drove my brand new car for the first time. First day, I'm just like, I literally still had a smile on my face, and it was like, I was like. Oh, you can't have anything nice. Oh.
I feel like that's a thing that's out here, though, because I'm originally from the East Coast, and cracked windshields were not a thing. And now I'm like, you just got to like budget it in. Be like, you never quite know when that rock's going to hit your windshield.
Yeah, I learned the hard way, too. If you get a heated windshield, it's even more money. Oh, it's like... I think my SUV is like $500 to replace the windshield, because that same thing happened with that. Like I replaced the windshield on that, and like a couple months later, big crack in it again. And I'm like,
okay, I gotta say one thing about this movie though. I like movies that start off and introduce a whole bunch of people, and then they all just get slaughtered right before your eyes before anything happens. Like Friday the 13th did it the best, I think, that remake. But this one is kind of up there in like you meet some dickheads, you meet the cheesy guy from Mortal Kombat that's really drunk, and like just a whole bunch of like characters that I was like, oh cool, like I could go along with these characters for the rest of the movie, and they like all get their heads just destroyed so fast. I love some pretty decent gore too, so I don't know, it has some redeemable qualities to a very very B or C maybe movie.
Is there a C movie? I don't know about C movies. But yeah, it's weird because you can do like, they obviously didn't have a huge budget for this movie, and so they can sit there and chuck in a bunch of CG death instead of like doing practical effects. And I always prefer practical effects over CG, but like they were generally pretty decent, and they did some. It seemed like they did some practical effects in there.
They're using a Black Magic Pocket 4K for the camera. I'm looking at the behind the scenes, and I'm like, it's not like the cinema quality. So that's why I say like this is like super indie, where it's pretty much like,
I mean, this movie would have taken a lot of work. Like even one of my complaints was there's a lot of flashback scenes, and like some of these scenes go on for so long. Yeah. But I'm also just like, damn, like this would have taken a lot of effort to just do this whole separate sequence with all these other actors. And so, like, I have respect for that. And like the editing, okay, because I fell down the rabbit hole. Mark Freese, is that his name? The guy who directed it.
I think I saw the name. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he also helped write it. He was it said something, he did something with costumes. He also edited it. Yeah. So I was just like, this guy had his hands in most of it, and I'm like, it made sense.
Respect.
Yeah, respect. Yeah. Even though I'm like, it's not gonna win any Oscars.
No, but that's where like Kung Fury. That's where I bring up Kung Fury too, because like it was just this small group of people that just love movies that have a more taste, obviously, than these people or these creators, but it's still like that same like. They did all the special effects themselves. That's why it took so long to come out, and it was all in green screen. Now they actually have a budget with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Fassbender to do an actual Kung Fury movie, and I'm so excited to check that out. But it's like,
I've never seen Kung Fury. Is that the one with the guy who's using like gophers as nunchucks?
No. Kung Fury is.
That
you
seems
can
like
watch
it's
it.
like a very different movie. Is that
Yeah.
Kung Pao?
Yeah, that's Kung
I think
Pao,
so.
yeah. Kung Fury is amazing. It's like a half an hour short, but it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's fucking amazing.
I think I know what you're talking about now that you say that. Yeah.
It's
I
got
have seen
Nazis
this
in it
one.
as well, and yeah, dude, check that.
It's so I think it's interesting, especially these type of movies, how Nazis end up being the go-to kind of villain. But like, I feel
He's a
like it
time
has
traveling
lot-
cop who does kung fu.
That's pretty dope. But they use like, you remember when they tried to make the Red Dawn remake, or they made the Red Dawn remake a while back, and then like the villains were going to be Korea, and then like they were like, oh no, we want to distribute in Korea, so we can't do that. Then we're going to make it China, and they're like, no, we can't do that. And like, so then they made it some like non-specific Asian country, and it's like, I think it's like, especially for these lower like budget movies, it just like makes sense. Although the one Nazi in the flashbacks had a uniform that didn't look like like the rest of the guys. I don't know if you noticed that. Like one guy had like a green uniform, or gray, like green. I'm like, this doesn't even look like a Nazi uniform. And I'm not gonna say I know everything about Nazi uniforms, because I know they had different like they different like units and shit like that. But like, I'm like, this doesn't look like a Nazi uniform. And I really So they talk about their plan starts like back in World War II, right? They're gonna do this thing where they're bringing these zombies out to like fight. They wanted to go after England, right? Was their like big thing, it seemed like at that point. But and there was the fat guy who they were showing everything to, that I was like, that guy's uniform doesn't look like the rest of the Nazis. But
It's because he didn't fit into the other uniforms that they had.
probably.
Did you? I was just like, because you brought up something that like continuity. But did you notice there was a lot of times their mouths didn't match up with what they were saying?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was just me or if that was a universal thing.
They dubbed over.
I know, it just didn't. It happened a lot that it was like noticeable.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where I think like with the budget, it makes it so they couldn't do a bunch of takes, right? So they probably had to go and like, okay, well, this isn't exactly what we wanted dialogue wise, but we can dub over it again.
Yeah.
And it's a thing where, I mean, they were like, oh, we have sky sharks with Nazis, right? Zombies riding on them. We don't really like, I think dubbing it over it a little bit, especially the two girls, like the sisters that were like, they were like the ones that like they seemed that they might have done like a bunch of dubs. Like,
it's okay that they did dubs. It was just like so different than what their mouths were doing that I was like, they're like, yeah, we should go over there, and it's like, you clearly didn't say that. But
it's like when you watch like when you watch anime and you like if you ever watch it with like English like on top of it, and this is anything but like anime really stands out, where you like they're trying to match their mouths, but then you see the dialogue that it was originally in Japanese or whatever, and you're like, it's so different. You're like, oh, okay, this is like they just needed something that was getting the same message across in the same kind of syllables, and that we're getting there with that. And so they were trying to take over, but then like it must have been like in 45, like when they were about to lose. They never were really specific with a lot of detail, and the Nazis were about to lose, so they gave up. And they said they went to Argentina, or like a lot of the guys were going to Argentina, but the main character dude like was part of the program to take German scientists and move them over to the U.S., which they did in real life, right? They took a bunch of German scientists.
I gotta bring up that like, they would pull to or cut to the newscasters a lot, because that's just an easy like way to show different places. But what the hell was that one newscaster in New York that like took weird pauses.
I
was like, is that one take or something? Why did you use this?
Drunk. I looked at my husband. I was like, did you think he was drinking before they filmed this?
It made no sense. It was the worst part of the movie. I was like, why did you leave that in? This is so bad.
His accent was really strange too. Like I was like trying to place his accent. I'm like, what? And maybe he was drunk. I'm like, what?
Because like you wouldn't be reading a prompter, but obviously he was reading his lines or something, and then he was putting pauses in, and I was like, yeah, but this is supposed to be you just saying this stuff, so you wouldn't put those pauses in. Oh my god, that was really bad. I just remembered that and had to bring that up because like, oh, it stuck out so bad to me.
So much of this movie was just green screens, right? Like you were talking about.
Pretty much every shot was,
yeah. Except for the airplane scenes, right, where they actually had a.
They had a set.
Yeah,
but
they had
behind the window was a green screen. So
yeah, it was so funny because they had like a 4C airplane, like the little ones they used from like flying to like from like Cleveland to New York or something, like those little flights, and they're like, oh yeah, this is going from London or like over somewhere in Europe to like New York, and I'm like, that airplane couldn't do it doesn't have enough fuel, doesn't have whatever, but I'm like, oh, but they have that Ford plane, like, and I think they used the same plane later on when they just went, hey guys, we're gonna chuck a bunch of you guys can fly across to New York, and I'm like, so you just sacrificed an entire airplane of people.
They were bait.
To like
how,
yeah,
and they all died.
They sold it as like they would have.
No one was left unsquished or decapitated.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yep, that was like they set it up like they had that air marshal guy, and they're like, he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a badass, and then he was like screaming like
he had
a wuss,
gun on one of them, and he didn't pull the trigger, and he's just like screaming, and I'm like, I thought they were setting it up that he was gonna be like a badass who does like, I'm gonna kick him out the window, like he just had no arc. He just crashed and burned, literally.
Just something about Nazi zombies, though. Like, I don't know. They're always good. You can just always use them in pretty much anything. Just throw in a Nazi zombie, whatever. They just go together.
There's a really, really good zombie movie from, I think, Norway called Dead Snow.
Dead Snow is so good.
I think I've seen that, actually.
That's the one where it's very Evil Dead, but like I always make fun of it because of the couple that goes to bang in the outhouse, and and then a zombie comes in through the toilet or whatever, and you're like, why? Again, okay.
Such a good movie, though.
Here's another thing. Why is everyone in this movie horny at all times? They're like, they find this Nazi ship.
Because the filmmaker was horny.
Yeah, that's why. Like, I was like, he just wanted more boobs. But like, they're in the airport with the sky marshal guy. Like the people who were making out, that guy was so sweaty. I don't know if anybody else noticed that. He was so sweaty, and I just like that was all I could see.
They were the ones that were banging in the stall and got the periscope thingy through his head, which, man. But like, they find this ship, like they have this Arctic expedition or whatever that like they talk about in the intro or like the summarization of the movie, and these two go in and start banging in a frozen Nazi ship. I'm like, you couldn't like just wait. Like, you really, this seems like the most unpleasant experience of all time. And like, they get the guy so into it, he gets his head chopped off, and you're like,
yeah, but then there's like a really, really long shower scene that just keeps going too. And I'm like, why is this still on? Like, you've already, just wait. Oh, there's now full frontal nudity, and now back nudity as well. Like, oh my god, well, this is okay. This is happening.
They do that shot, and then they're like, she had been injected by the zombie lady, the Nazi zombie lady, and so they have to like show like neurons firing in her a couple times, like in her ass and shit like that. And like, what is this showing? Like, we know that she got injected, like, and I know it's an excuse for nudity, but like, I'm like, why the neurons? Like, just why don't you just have her? Like,
that was really bad.
Yeah, I was like,
not to like jump far ahead, but the ending when she turned into like she was kind of an evil zombie, and she ripped the
Yep.
door open.
Yeah.
Why they had the antidote the whole time?
Yeah.
Why did they not inject her with the antidote before she turned and let all these Nazi zombies on
She didn't
board?
tell them. She never told them that she was
no,
going to turn. But the dad knew.
The dad and the sister knew. They knew that she had been injected, and they knew it was going to happen. And he goes, "When your sister turns, why do you inject her before that?" Do you? What Katie's saying? I'm like, that was the biggest thing. I'm like, but
I didn't catch on to that. So okay.
Yeah.
There's too many boobs distracting me, I guess.
There were a lot of distractions in this movie for sure. And got that entire plane of soldiers killed.
I know, and then they were fine after, like, oh, Dad's just getting old. Like, was there no talk about, like, hey, you just literally let all these people on board and murdered all these people helping, and it's just like, oh, Dad.
Oh, sis. Oh, our Nazi dad.
Yeah, but that's
so silly.
That's why I was so disappointed with the end, because I was like, that's the end? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know what they should have done is they needed Jason Statham riding on the giant mega space
no,
megalodon.
just a flying car. Family. Like
Family.
family.
Some Fast and Furious.
They
man,
do that in F9, by the way.
Yeah.
There's just a car in space. And
Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen any of the Fast and Furious, but I've heard that I need to experience them. But
yeah, they're
the fact that you just told me there's a car in space makes me go, all right.
yeah.
Only this one. Like, they completely check out on all reality now. Like,
Yeah.
they used to be like a little bit of reality in it-ish. Like, I loved the franchise, and I got very angry after seeing the last one, because I'm like, why? Like, I love these characters, and now you just don't even care anymore. It's just like more guns.
Money grabs.
It's very over
It's sad when they kill your like your favorite character's honor by just being like, here's a shitty plot. I hope you enjoy it.
Dominic Toretto.
Yeah. But the memes that have come out of the movie have been pretty amazing. The memes have been the family memes.
Yeah.
I saw some stuff on there that I just go, wow, I love it, and I show shit to my wife all the time, and I just get that look like, why did you do this to me? Why? Which I get often, because I show my wife insane things, and she's like, I don't know. But my wife is tough. Like
we had Arby's for dinner last night.
I showed my wife Two Girls, One Cup when it came out, because I was like, oh, she's gonna see it for 2 seconds and then turn on and turn it off, and I went and watched it. And then she made fun of me because I wanted to turn it off. She's like, why, you don't want to watch the rest of it?
I've never seen it either, because I've heard what it is.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
I think it ruined me a little bit.
It's just like,
why I am.
It's just like some of those movies that we were talking about, like deep diving or like going into the crazy list and stuff. And then I heard what happens in some of the movies, and I'm like, I'm a dad. Like, I don't want to see that type of shit. Like, no. Like, I got 2 daughters. I don't need to see that shit. So no thanks on some of those lists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were talking about the movies that get noted as being like the most, like, you know, like the most fucked up movies of all time and all that stuff. Kind of, you know, the lists that are. I think the one that gets brought up like recently all the time was like a Serbian film, which is one of those lists. But was it Human Centipede was on there for a while, but then they made like 3 of those, and none of them are any good. But
I haven't seen that either. I've seen the South Park episode based upon Human Centipede.
So
that's all you need.
That's all you need.
I will tell you, that South Park is more fucked up than the movie itself.
I think my morbid curiosity sometimes, like, it was on Netflix for a long time, and I would see it when I'd scrolling. I'm like, should I? I don't know if it's still on there, but like, I've had so many people tell me like, oh, it's not as bad as you would think, and then I've had other people saying, don't do it. You'll never be the same.
So Josh had been like that. We watched recently a movie called Audition. I don't know if you've heard of it. Audition is
it on Netflix?
It was on something at some point recently on like.
No, I have not seen this one.
Yeah, but it gets this really weird rap for being one of the most fucked up movies ever. But like, Josh can tell you, like, it's for 90% of the movie, it's like it's this romance drama movie
Yeah.
that turns into torture porn at the very end. But it's not nearly as bad as some of the shit that's out there, and you're just like,
Yeah, but I'm so desensitized now. Like for me to stay away from a movie, like especially that one, for so long, just because I'm like, oh, I'm living into the hype. Like it's so hyped up from so many people in my life, and it's just like I have to see it now because I'm who I am, as like always talking about horror. I'm the horror guy to everyone in my life. So the fact that I haven't seen like every horror movie surprises some people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's just so much out there,
Yeah.
man. I mean, horror gets like, we would never watch Sky Sharks if it wasn't for this. So I mean, it's
well,
a
we're
thing
like
where
you said before, like that having an adult life, having kids and a full-time job, and like that's why I don't do content creation as much anymore. This is like the thing that brings it all back for me, and like why I can gush over how much I love that you broke me out of that little box I was in for a while.
Well, it's Katie, you could probably, you know, I mean, you do your podcast and everything else. Like at this, like when you're working full time, like in just doing all this stuff, this is my release from the, you know, the like grinds of normal day where I don't get to be creative or do things. It's like where I get to go out and, you know, just bullshit around and have fun for a little while, because otherwise I barely play games off stream anymore or anything like that. So I game when I stream and like talk about horror and stuff. So like it's kind of where I get to like, you know, unwind and, you know, create content and do goofy shit, right? So
Chop dicks, right?
Yeah. That's just you, Josh, and your new obsession, chopping dicks, man. I do have to say the sharks in this, like I think the sharks look pretty decent most of the time. Besides, I mean, they're flying because of these rigs they put them in, but like the one thing that made me laugh though, like how do the sharks have like modern missiles? Like they're like shooting missiles from like right now, like you would see in like an F-35 Raptor or something like that.
I just wish there was a little more. I mean, the movie's called Sky Sharks. I feel like there wasn't enough sharks, but I also feel like I wanted more explanation on how these sharks survive flying in the sky. Like I think there was a scene where they got injected with this zombie flying potion stuff that the Nazis made. A sentence I never thought I would say in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like I would have enjoyed more shark lore.
Yeah, I would too, because like they have some at the very, like when the sister is like invading the ship, she's like seeing, they're like, you get shots of like the containers of the shark sediment and stuff, right? And you're like, oh, okay, but like
I just love how they ride them like a fucking jet ski. Like that's so cool.
Well, they put that cool like system on them where it's like they can fly and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, but like
there wasn't enough at all.
Yeah.
100%.
There weren't enough sharks in the movie called Sky Shark. You're definitely accurate with that. I'm like, there are a lot of Nazis, but it's not Nazi Sky Sharks. It's like Sky Sharks, and so
it wasn't Sky Nazis. It was Sky Sharks.
It was Sky boobs.
Yeah, Sky boobs.
What the boob scene that completely made me like, what the fuck, and laugh. The guy who was recording the Sky Sharks coming up to the plane while watching porn at the same time.
Was it
like
he was recording over his own homemade porn or something, because he was watching it on the camcorder, just boobs, and that's where they cut to how they found out that Sky Sharks existed, because they found this guy's footage of boobs and Sky Sharks.
How would they have found that though? Because this airplane was over the Atlantic when it went down. And
how did anything?
Richter Technology seemed very competent, so maybe they had a method.
The Nazi guy who was 115 years old, he had like a docking station that went down his spine that like they never really explained, and then like he goes in and you're like, but what? Because you don't know till they throw this thing at the very end that he can control a giant megalodon space shark, like flying shark that just eats the rest of the sharks, and that's how they deal with the Sky Sharks. And you're like, well, where did he get like? At least the all the sharks were like great whites or whatever. Like, where did a megalodon come from? I don't know that either. Like, I mean, I guess you're questioning a movie about Nazis and sky sharks and everything like that. Like, you're like, well, I mean, you got to kind of go
Don't
along
question
with it.
Just accept it. Nazis, sharks, and boobs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Man.
megalodons are extinct, but I mean, my headcanon goes he had a megalodon somewhere in case this ever happened. Like, he genetically made the shark, but he did. He put the spine on to control the shark, which is funny to me because sharks are like don't have any bones, so it's like they're made of cartilage.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I get hung up on.
Yeah. There was a lot that you can get hung up on this movie, like logically. It was like.
Did you see the Meg?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
See, that's fun. That was stupid.
So,
weren't there two Megs in it? Like at the end, 2 megalodons.
I don't know.
They're making a sequel, aren't they?
I don't know. That movie. My problem with that movie was that the characters in that movie were so incredibly stupid that you're sitting there like I hate. One of my biggest
it's
like a lot of
they're
people,
looking this way and there's a huge megalodon right here and they're like, oh shit, there it is.
Yeah.
Giant shark.
One of my most angry I've ever been in a movie was in Prometheus when Charlize Theron is running while the giant ship is rolling at her and she's running in the same direction. Like she could run 5 feet to the side and she's supposed to be this ship captain who's gone through this and she can't get the physics of like moving to the side and not getting squished. And I'm like,
I just hated her penis haircut in F9. Like it was like literally her haircut was a penis.
She looked like Curly or Mo from like the Three Stooges.
Yeah,
but
she was
with
a
Charlize
dickhead.
Theron.
I didn't know she was even in a Fast and Furious movie, so this is news to me.
A couple of them.
Yeah,
she's the bad guy in the current run of the movies is like a trilogy, and she's like the bad guy in the trilogy. She's like evil hacker. She's basically if you took Angelina Jolie's character from Hackers and made her like into a supervillain
and gave her a dickhead haircut. Like actual dickhead.
Is that like how you know she's evil though because of her haircut?
Yes. She had
dreadlocks in the last one, and she looks fucking dope with dreadlocks.
Yeah, she did.
Like,
I don't understand.
I don't know.
That haircut is so annoying to me.
I don't know. I don't know. I like dreadlocks on women though. So I mean, like Angelina Jolie in Gone in 60 Seconds. Like she's got those dreadlocks.
Look at the poster for F9 right here. She's right at the top with her dickhead.
Yeah, she's got a bowl cut.
No, is that like it's a choice? It was a choice.
Yeah, it's a very very.
Maybe she didn't have
choice.
time being evil to go get a proper haircut, so she just put a bowl on her head, cut around it.
I don't know. It's just bad. It's just bad.
It's a mocking. It's almost as bad as the haircuts that Courtney Cox has in like the second and third.
Who cut her bangs,
movies.
man? That
in the third one, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do they even count as bangs at that point? Like,
I hate. There are very few cases where you could ask my wife. I complain about bangs because I feel like bangs are so hard to pull off for most people, and when you like. You have like it looks like a toddler cut off her bangs with like scissors, and they had to do the best they could, and that was what Courtney Cox came up with. And I'm like, no.
Who was going to a salon being like, Courtney Cox from Scream? Can you please give me her haircut? Like who was asking for that?
Oh, I remember seeing Scream 2 in theaters with my like buddy. I think we were like in grade 7 or 8 or something. We were too young to see the movie, but his younger brother hit this weird growth spurt, so he was taller than my friend, and we went because is Scream R-rated or something? We were like 12.
Yeah, that's right. It's
I think
R-rated.
We were 12 or 13, and you had to be at least 14 because it was 14A in Canada. But we were all too young. But me and his brother got in, and then he didn't, and he's like, oh, he's with me, and his brother was like 9 years old or something. I still Scream 2. Dude, I love that movie.
The 90s were very different when it came to like letting you into movies, and then I think Columbine actually fucking messed that up a lot. Like I think that made a big deal, but like I used to go to movie. Like I remember going to see like The Frighteners like in the theater when I was like under 17 and stuff like that. I
went to that for my birthday party.
Yeah, that's another one you could put on your list if you ever. It's a Peter Jackson movie.
I'll have to look up that one.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox.
The movies I was going to for birthday parties was Muppet Treasure Island. So that was one of my favorite birthdays. Muppet Treasure Island came out on my birthday, and I was so excited.
I don't know if I've seen Muppet Treasure. I don't know if like the Muppet movies are. Man, I don't know what
Tim
the last
Curry's
one I
best
saw.
work. I mean,
yeah, Tim Curry's so good.
I do. I love him.
Man, The Frighteners came out in 96. Holy crap.
Yeah, I know.
What did?
The Frighteners came out in 96.
Yeah.
I had that poster on my wall next to my bed. Like, I've always been weird, man.
So that movie was Peter Jackson's first American movie, and it ended up, like, he bought all these computers to do the ghost CGI effects in the movie, and that was, like, he was like, oh, now what do we do with all these computers? And that's how he pitched to go start doing Lord of the Rings, because he had these computers he bought to do the CG in that movie. And so it's actually a pretty important movie, like, when it comes to, like, that kind of stuff, because of that effect it had on.
It looks interesting. I mean, Danny Elfman also did the music for it and stuff. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it wasn't huge. It was like, so it was at the time, like, that was this kind of resurgence time frame. It was like that, and like I remember that, and like The Faculty.
I love The Faculty, man. So many heavy hitters in that movie too.
I bought my wife that for Blu-ray on Blu-ray for Christmas, and we were watching it, and it holds up really well. Besides the head coming off and like wandering around towards the end of the movie, like that CG is just like, oh. Oh no, that CG's bad. It's funny because all that stuff. I know you just did what I did, Katie. You just went through all of Buffy, and my wife and I, we were just doing the same thing, and my wife and I played a game while we were doing this. We played when does Buffy and the other people get replaced, like, by stunt actors, because
my gosh, it was so obvious.
Yeah. You're like,
they did such a good job hiding their face, doing the like the karate or the fighting scenes and stuff. And like the hair was always covering their face, or like looking away, and like their body shapes were different.
Yeah, it was so bad, and it was one of those funny things where you're like, oh yeah, this is one of those things where they never expected you to watch this in high definition. Like they were like, you're watching this on a 4x3 TV, and then you put it into high definition movie, and you're like, oh no, that was bad.
Yeah, the guy who was Spike's double, his hair was so different than Spike's hair that it was just like a tall man with a bouffant of blonde standing in for Spike.
I enjoyed it. Besides the sixth season,
sixth season was the worst season. Mark and I are talking about how bad it, like that season just ruined it. And also it tackled some things that needed to be addressed a little bit more than I think that they were.
I always laugh about that movie because it does that it goes in, or that show, because it goes into the creepy you have 200-year-olds banging 16-year-olds.
Right. There's a lot that needs to be unpacked. I tried to just take it for the entertainment it was, but sometimes I was like, oh, this makes me uncomfortable.
But I mean, because the same thing with Twilight, right? Twilight, the guy's 100 years old, and like Bella's 16 or whatever, and they meet, and you're like, why do they keep having creepy old people? Just because they look like they're 16 doesn't mean they're not like 150 trying to bang 16-year-olds. Like, it makes me feel weird on the inside. Not a good way.
I never got on the Twilight train. Like, my roommate in college loved it, and so she dragged me to the movie, and I don't remember the movie at all. Besides, every time a man that was like the cute guy would come on screen, all the girls in the audience were like, "Oh man!" And I was just sitting there like, "What's happening?" Yeah, I was 18 or 19 when it came out, and I was just like, "Where am I? How did I get here? How do I leave?" Yeah. But I haven't seen any of the other ones.
They don't get better. The CGI baby is the shit out of the
There's a CGI baby.
Yeah.
Is it a horror?
So
does it turn into a horror film because of the CGI baby?
she has a before she becomes a vampire, she gets pregnant, and then they took the little girl that was playing the baby later on and morphed her face onto a baby, and it is right out of Nightmares. Right, it's one of the most horrifying things ever, and it's not meant to be. I mean, it's just like. It's
just bad.
I'm gonna look this up later because I need to know.
It's horrifying. Okay, what is there anything else left like about this movie that you guys wanted to, we've talked about it for like almost an hour after we bullshitted before that, but was there anything else that stands out to you with Sky Nazi space sharks from the 40s?
I have a question that maybe you two can answer for me. What was the point of Damien? I feel like that flashback just... I was expecting Damien to show back up, and then Damien never did.
So they were trying to take when he left, the scientist was trying to take their technology and like basically counteract them or make a super soldier for the good guys. And then it went badly because they had to remote control him. Like the guy, he controlled the shark at the end, and they like his adrenaline spiked or something. They said, and like he couldn't control him, and so he just killed everyone and everything. So that was basically. I think they were just setting up the remote controlling of someone with the super virus or whatever.
I was having a hard time piecing together the whole point of why I'm like, okay, it's another flashback with Dr. Richter. But I think my brain was so one track mind, like Damien's going to show back up and be like a boss fight. And then it was just an example, a very long-winded example that he could remote control. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, they did too much with that scene because it was like showing, trying to, but like you pointed out earlier, that's one of the things with this movie that like, I think is the biggest, like this guy, you could tell this guy's a newer director or hasn't directed all that much because there are scenes that go on
for
not like
way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. It's not like it's like 10 minutes when it should be a minute, but it's like when a scene should be like 2 minutes, it's like 4 minutes. Like it adds like extra like time that you go, you guys like,
but you feel the lull in those scenes.
Yeah.
It's just like, again, like he did a lot on this. If it was handed off to someone else, it wouldn't be so like, you could tell his vision was boobs and blood and
there was
lots of CG.
You pointed out earlier, Katie, the establishing shots and when they were going back to the 40s was like they drew that stuff out way too much, and it was like if you're gonna do that with this kind of movie, like at least make it like The Airplane where you're like making jokes and like making it like laughing while you're going through this a little bit because the comedy helps with the B tone because it's whatever. But I think that like you could have cleaned this up a little bit just to make it tighter for because this is not the type of movie that you make 2 hours long. You make this at like 90 minutes at the max, and you go, okay, this is a lot because shit even like can associate with doing like a. Like again, Sharknado. Those are like 90-minute movies or an hour and 20-minute movies that they put on Sci-Fi for 2 hours with 40 minutes of commercials, and you're getting that same kind of thing. And this has that kind of same like feeling just with the you take the handcuffs off because you're not on Sci-Fi Channel. So the editing was weird. There was times where I'm like, there was like a second he could have shaved off in some areas where I'm like, and then the line would have been delivered a little bit smoother and some of the pacing and stuff. And I'm like, I respect that this guy had did so much for this, but there was a point where Tony Todd is celebrating and there's just a lull at the beginning and a lull at the end. And I'm like, if he had just cut like those fractions of a second off, it would have been so much smoother. But I gotta respect the movie. I mean, it looked better than some movies that I've seen, and it's not perfect. I don't think Sky Sharks would be a perfect film it's someone's perfect film. It wasn't mine, but it was fun to watch. It was. If you embrace it and like this is the kind of stuff that I think like if I could go back and show it to like 13-year-old me, Like, oh my God, this is like, and it makes me actually kind of go back and want to, like, I've never finished it. I've started Iron Sky at some point. I don't know if you guys know about Iron Sky, the movie where basically the Nazis after World War II went and built a base on the dark side of the moon, and like they come back like in the like whatever. It came out during like the whole time frame when like Sarah Palin was a person, like when one of the characters in the movie looks like Sarah Palin and is like a politician and shit like that. And it's the same kind of like, over the top, like, B movie, but with like, oh, they're using Nazis, they could do anything and like that. So
yeah,
it's like, it kind of seemed like that movie like inspired this a little bit, but I don't know. It very, out there for what it is. So yeah,
it's a movie.
It is a movie, man, and I had fun with it. It was like, not like, just the amount of sex was just like, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't happen as much anymore, right? But I think with with the internet being what it is, I think that stuff it pops up in movies, but like a lot of the time is like, it's very like specified in like, like adult dramas and like very realistic kind of things. And this movie doesn't have that. It's just like 80s like slasher movies with boobs kind of thing. And that's kind of like the feel it had. And a lot of this movie felt like an 80s movie, like brought into 2000s with the like CGI and all that stuff. Right. So it makes sense. And it was like,
but it was like, when there was nudity, it was on screen for a long time too.
Yeah.
Just like everything else. So like when the one gets like passed around and then like dangled down to be eaten by sharks, full nudity for like a long ass time. I was just like, I found myself laughing out loud at the movie instead of kind of with the movie, because it was just so ridiculous that I was just like, I can't believe it is doing this and continuing to do this. I was just laughing.
Well, they did. You guys mentioned it. They did the whole people having sex and then the guy getting killed wallet, and then the girl running away with like boobs covered in blood. Not once, but twice, because it happens on the airplane when she's just running down the aisle, and I'm like, what?
This movie's very like Snakes on a Plane meets Sin City is how I feel. Like there's just they had a baby and this is what you get.
It's the kind of violence where, like, again, it's where you do that CG stuff. Like if they would have done most of this stuff with practical effects, it probably would have looked bad. But like they went in and did all this stuff, and it's like, because I think to have a budget, you would need a way bigger budget to do like that kind of like practical effects. And again, practical effects are always better with horror movies, like for most things, right? But I mean, they embraced it and they were like, we're doing a B movie, we're gonna do it and have fun, and they did. And it seemed like most of the actors were having a good time too, right? Like it doesn't see like there wasn't anyone, not the acting was good, but like no one was like sitting there stiff reading lines, right? They were like,
other than that one guy.
Who was probably drunk, right? But everyone was, and it makes, with bad movies, it makes it so much more enjoyable when people are it means something, right? Like I love a good bad movie. I will laugh about The Fanatic till the end of time. I will watch.
I was telling Ben to watch that because he didn't even know it existed. I'm like, what? Like,
have you heard of The Fanatic, Katie?
No, it sounds somewhat familiar, but I don't think I know what that is.
So, Fred Durst directed a movie where John Travolta plays a guy with it's autism or something. They don't really say. And John Travolta. Do you know the line from Tropic Thunder where the Robert Downey Jr. goes, "You never go full"?
Yeah.
John Travolta didn't take that advice and is the most like.
Wait, okay. There's like, I'm also hung up on the fact that Fred Durst directed this movie, so but I need to look this up.
And then the best part is the car scene, because Devon Sawa's in the car and a Limp Bizkit song comes on, and he then tells the son to turn it up. It's Limp Bizkit. So me doing that third, like I'm looking into how scenes are being made in my head, and like the cringe factor was up to like a million because I'm like, Fred Durst is in the back seat directing this and telling him to do this and get more pumped because it's Limp Bizkit.
Oh.
I'm like, oh no. And you know what's even funnier? My friend right now is touring with Limp Bizkit. His band Spirit Box is touring with Limp Bizkit right now.
Did you see pictures of him?
Yeah.
Did you see what he looks like now?
He looks like
With my
David
friend.
Spade.
He looks old man Durst.
He looks like Mr. Rogers joined a like.
I think the most shocking thing about this is that this came out in 2019. I thought that this was a movie from like, you know, like, oh, it's from 1998. No, this is from 2019.
It is one of the biggest disaster movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
But you can see the love for filmmaking in it. Like, you can see that he loves making films, and you see it, and it's like it transcends into almost a good movie like The Room.
Yeah.
Like, where you can't intentionally make something this bad without having a bunch of heart. So, like, The Room is nothing but heart and a disaster, where this it feels the same
kind of thing.
Yeah, it almost transcends into a good bad movie.
Have you seen The Room, Katie?
I have not seen The Room, which I have heard I need to watch purely
100%.
because of
100%.
it's I know the line, oh hi Mark, or whatever that is, but that's the only thing I really know about it.
And he says, "Oh, hi, dog." He says later on, he goes into the flowers. That's the flower shop. It might be the best scene in the movie because he walks in and to buy flowers for his girlfriend. And he has a pair of sunglasses on, and like the lady at the counter doesn't recognize him, and then he takes the sunglasses off, and she's like, "Oh, it's you. I didn't." But they're just sunglasses. And then
Oh man, I met Greg Sestero. He brought it because he wrote the book, The Disaster Artist, that they made into that other movie. So he brought it to Calgary, and then they did like a live reading of an actual. There's actually a worse version of The Room that exists, and he was reading from that script, and they were like doing a live like script read and stuff from it, and then we watched The Room.
It's funny picking up bad movies. Like if a movie gets made with love, a bad movie can be really good. It's just boring. Boring is the worst thing you could do with a movie. And so boring is. I mean, it's funny because you talk about your love of Mummy, and it's funny, Katie, because it makes me laugh because my wife is like obsessed with the Mummy movies, like obsessed.
She has good taste.
Yeah, and except for the third one. And
the third one.
We went and saw that one.
That one's trash. We can all get on board with that. It's not as good as 1 and 2. I like 2. Yeah. Mummy 2 was pretty good. I'll die on this hill.
No, I like the second one too. Do you see them Tom Cruise on?
Yeah, and I was really sad. Like, I literally was like, do not do this. They were trying, wasn't Universal trying to boot up the universe?
Dark.
Yeah, and it was just Russell Crowe's character, just all of that. It made me angry. Like, I remember watching it and just being like,
it was so heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It was so heavy-handed.
Have you heard of Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde or whatever? And I'm just like, please, this is supposed to be about mummies. I didn't like it. That
was literally the first 2/3 of the movie was bad, but it was entertaining bad. And then they did all that in the third act, and I'm like, this is just it's so forced that you go, this is just not even watchable anymore. And it's hard to ruin Tom Cruise movies. Like, that guy just has so much charisma.
If he runs, it's usually a good movie. He ran a lot in that movie.
I've heard that he doesn't let a lot of other actors run when he runs. Like, he specifically has like a clause or something that other actors can't run when he's running or something.
Yeah, because he's like 5'0" in like, so like it would be very like, I don't even know how they made him versus Henry Cavill not look like David and Goliath, because they did a good job of like those two fighting in that last mission.
I love when he cocks his hands like a gun. Reloads.
Because Henry Cavill's a big dude and Tom Cruise is a little dude, and so they shoot. Tom Cruise has some fucking magical people working with him that like hide up that he's a little man. So
he steps on a box. He's always on apple crates.
Yeah. I do like most things. I still think Edge of Tomorrow is so underrated. That movie's fucking awesome.
That was a movie
if you've never
that,
seen it, Katie.
It went under the radar even for me too. Like at that point we were doing the rebrew and reviewing movies all the time, and I didn't see it, and then it was just on like demand or something, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess what is this like? And I think the only reason I watched it is because they did change the name from Edge of Tomorrow to Live Die Repeat. And it was up as Live Die Repeat, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I put it on not knowing and watched it and was like, why and how did I not see this movie? It's so good.
That movie confused me because it did change the name, and so my brain was like, I never watched it because Edge of Tomorrow sounds really lame to me.
Yeah.
And so is it now called Live Die Repeat, or was it changed?
The sequel is going to be Live Die Repeat again or something like that. So
yeah, they changed the name like officially because they
Live Die Repeat is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's called Live Die Repeat and Repeat. Apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as good, but
better than Edge of Tomorrow too.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just a name that doesn't like it's a name can sell. It's funny because we've done so many indie movies that on this podcast, Katie, where it's actually caused us problems because Josh and I have like watched different movies that have the same kind of generic name. Like we had this movie called like I think it was called Spiral, like before the Saw movie came out, and it was on Shudder. And Josh found another another movie called Spiral, and it was about like Jewish like angst or something like that you were telling me about, and it was really weird.
But it was
and, like,
really bad too, and I watched it and was like, why did you want to do this? Like, I can't wait to shit on a movie, man. And he's like, that was the wrong one. No. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
When I
At least I
checked
told him.
Yeah, I checked our message like several times to make sure I got the right movie for this. And I was like, I got to make sure I don't find a Sky Sharks movie that's... I don't think another one exists, but I was like, just in case.
Well, even like when I go down, like I was telling you on Plex, the actual Plex section, they upload a whole bunch of movies for free for you to watch as well. And there's just so many weird, obscure shark movies that aren't Sharknado, that aren't like, I haven't heard of any of these, but there's so many now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Ever since, I mean, Sharknado just cut it off, like kicked it off, right? So it was a lot of just shenanigans after Sharknado made Sci-Fi a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. Because, I mean, it cost nothing.
That's a pretty bad movie. But I will say, I turned it on as a joke, and then I watched the whole thing. So who's laughing now? I mean, honestly.
It's bad, but it's very much like this movie. Like, they like...
It's like going to McDonald's. It's like, I know it's not going to be good, but I kind of want a shitty cheeseburger right now.
Yeah.
And that's Sharknado.
And then you feel bad about yourself after you ate it. You're like, what have I done?
Yeah, but it was for the meme, right? That's why I did it.
It's like when Katie, when you were eating, or you were dabbing, like you were doing your St. Jude thing.
I'm
Katie
ashamed of how much I dab. It's ridiculous.
But you raised so much money. So I mean, like that's why I bought this T-shirt because it was for St. Jude. But like, you raised like $25,000 or something insane.
Yeah, it was like
it was
26 this year, which I'm like, that's amazing, and I'm so proud of the community. There was a moment, I think I dabbed like 100 times in a row.
Yeah.
And like your arms get tired when you dab that much.
Yeah.
And I'm not good at dabbing. Like there are some people who have exquisite form. I am not that person. Yeah. But then it just turned into like, then you just start doing it to be like funny, and then you just start doing it more. It's like when you ironically say something and then you start saying it. That's what I did with dabbing.
I say yeet way too much, and like my wife is, and we're both way too fucking old to be saying this shit. And like I turn 38 this month.
We're all on Twitch, right? So like once you're part of a community, it seeps into your soul, and you got to.
Yeah. You say yeet as much as you want, Rod. Okay. I feel like I always get hung up like, oh, am I getting too old to do this stuff? And I'm like, nah. Life's too short. If you want to say yeet, just say yeet all the time.
And if you want to dab, you dab.
You just dab, okay? Though I do I think dabbing's done. I think it's reached its peak. I don't think dabbing's a thing anymore. So.
I think people our age doing it might have put it over the top. Like it put it out to the pasture. They had to go old yeller on it after like.
It's like when you see like our generation's parents are all now on Facebook too, and
it
like,
ruined Facebook. I ruined dabbing.
Right? I feel like I'm getting
me.
to that age now that I'm like doing something, and then I like stop and think, and I'm just like, wait a second, am I like too old? Like people are thinking that I'm the parent ruining things now because I kind of am a parent, and shit, like no.
I still don't have a TikTok, and I can't do it.
So I made a TikTok when TikTok first came out, and it was like they had some Terminator looking filter, and I made some goofy joke and got called a boomer within like a half an hour of putting it, and I'm just like, and then so
that's why I don't have a TikTok.
I put some videos of Gizmo slow-mo catching things on there, and that was like about it. I'm like, yeah, that just cut way too close to the fucking core. I'm just like,
yeah, but I play Fortnite when I stream, so like I am a boomer, so it doesn't matter.
But so does fucking Jay Muse plays Fortnite on Twitch too.
Yeah,
so
but he's Jay Muse. I'm not.
Yeah, but you've done way less drugs than Jay Muse. So
way less. But they're making Clerks 3 right now.
Yeah. It was just Kevin Smith's 51st birthday or 50th birthday or something.
Today.
And like, they were shooting Clerks 3.
Or yesterday, yeah.
Clerks 2 was highly underrated, man.
I loved it.
And I still take I still go to this day because of the two sayings in that movie are, I'm taking it back, and sometimes it's okay to go ass to mouth because of Rosario Dawson in that movie.
I haven't seen it. I'll add it to the list.
Clerks 2 is really good.
Have you seen Clerks 1, the first one?
I've seen, like, you know how Comedy Central would just play movies, like, when we were younger, and, like, they'd have commercials? Yeah. So I've seen, like, bits of Clerks, and, like, sometimes a lot of movies are like that, where I'm like, I've seen, like, half of it. So I feel like is it Clerks, the one where he, like, he's outside in the trench coat, and he, like, tucks, and then he's, like, okay, so I've seen, like, some of it, I guess.
Yeah.
In black and white, yeah.
Yeah.
So that movie has so much though. Like there's the German guy, or Jason Mewes is singing about Berserker. And he's singing like would you like to suck my cock, Berserker? It's just like insane stuff like that. And then the running joke where the guy's girlfriend sucked 37 dicks, and then the one guy's like, in a row. And like I'm like, how did that translate to like Comedy Central? So it's just like it's always funny like. You ever watch when they do like Die Hard 2 has the most infamous scenes where they do the cable edits for movies.
Oh yeah,
where they're like
Mr. Falcon instead of
yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, it's yippee-ki-yay Mr. Falcon, and shit like that, and it's just like how that shit translates, right? So okay, I think we've bounced off this fucking walls enough.
Wait, Sky Sharks?
Sky Sharks?
ADHD is hitting where it hits. My old dog, it was.
Well, we're talking movies at least, right? Like it's not like we're going too far.
No,
we're not in a different field. At least we're just in left field.
Oh, it's way left field. That's okay. It's okay. I'm happy with it. Well, Katie, thank you so much though for coming by. I know again we talked about it, but you're a busy bee, so like having a couple hours out of your time to bullshit with us is greatly appreciated.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. I mean, I'm glad that I watched this, but then I had people to talk about it with. So I'm very grateful for that.
If you're going to watch this movie, watch it or get someone else with to friends. Watch it so you can be like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. It's way more. I have a T-shirt. So we had a podcast that was on our network that has since retired doing it. They were called So Horrified, and they did their whole thing was doing bad movies and just like making fun of them. And they have a T-shirt that I got that said, "Bad movies are so much better with good friends," is what the shirt says. And that's awesome. What it feels like. It's like you could bullshit with it and like have fun. So, Katie, why don't you tell everyone where they could find you and your podcast and your stream and everything like that?
Okay.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him. Here, I'll tell him for you.
I'm so bad at like promoting myself. Like I'm always like, okay, I got this time. You can do it.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. You can find Katie on Twitch, and your days are Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday are your streams, right?
Yes.
Her hours you can find, but her Twitch is Katie Peters Plays. Katie Peters Plays. I'll put a link on there. And Katie Hasn't Seen That is out every other week when you're not in the hiatus, right?
Yeah, but there's like 33 episodes, so if you haven't heard any, you can catch up on lots of maybe childhood treasures that I will destroy for you.
She does, and I also commend like the whole solo podcast thing because it is very like it's very, very different. Like you're sitting in there and you're doing like you're talking to yourself. Like it's commendable because you're like it's not. I think it's way harder than to like have like I could sit here and bullshit with Josh, and just like throw things off. So the podcast is like about a half an hour. Like sometimes you go a little bit longer, but
yeah.
I think it's always a good time, and because she records an intro and she like doesn't tell like she's like I don't know what the fuck I'm getting into, but she doesn't say fuck most of the time. But
I do sometimes, and I use my little my little button.
I miss my Go XLR. It's broken and it makes me sad. So check out her stream, check out her podcast because it's good times. And she's wonderful people. Like we said, she just this year alone got $26,000.
That was community was wonderful.
I know, but you are the captain rallying the troops around this. You are Tony Todd.
I'm Tony Todd.
Rallying,
yes,
rallying the troops and being very excited when the Sky Sharks are defeated by a larger Sky Shark. Mm-hmm. So. I think I did that. Like, is there anything else?
Thank you. I didn't mean to be like, now you do my outro.
No, you said you're bad at it. And I'm like, I'll get it if you don't mind. I mean, just helping out. So it's
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, and I don't know. I'm excited to listen to more of your episodes because I wanna watch some of these horror movies because they're obscure and like sometimes I like watching. My favorite movies to watch, like when I have no pressure to do anything, is horror or like thrillers. Yeah. So I'm gonna see what you all have watched and try to watch them, and then like listen to the episodes after.
There's a lot. I mean, we like you said, we were in the 45. I think is what we said. Mm-hmm. This is but like, I think one of the things that's weird about this podcast, I think that a lot of the movies no one has ever heard of, or it's not like I think it limits what the audience is for this sometimes, but I don't really care because it's not really why I'm doing it. It's like to hanging with my buddy Josh and bullshit
especially
about movies and
with like a lot of the Canadian films. It's like I pick it because I know the filmmakers and I'm so excited to see their next film and what they're up to and stuff, right? And they're fucking rad. So
it's my love of Asian cinema kind of drove me into like my love of like a lot of the Asian horror specifically has driven me to where I love it, and I just feel like not enough people have gone out and watched this stuff. And then like
I've seen like half of them, but then the others I wouldn't if I wasn't on this show. And I love that it's like it's unlocking a few things that I definitely wouldn't have seen otherwise. So I love it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff, and there's a lot of shenanigans, Katie. So you could have a backlog of things to check out. And if you ever want to come back and there's something you do want to watch, there's a lot of movies to come and talk about.
If I ever find an obscure horror movie that I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about this, you will be the first I contact.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I think one of my favorite movies all time, I got to show Josh, which is Old Boy, which is South Korean, and one of those. It's not very horror; it's more thriller, but with.
But again,
my camera's fucking
stuff on my list that it's like it's been there for so long, and to like, I don't know. Now that I have like, oh no, I have to watch it for Murder Moose. So now my wife is like, if there wasn't a reason, it's like I don't want to watch horror. That's all you watch, and it's like, but I have to. For Murder Moose now. Yeah. Like, fuck. Now you gotta sit there and watch it with me.
My wife came in when I was watching this yesterday, and she's like, "What the fuck are you watching?" And I'm like, I mean, this is for the podcast. She's like, "Do you what does the shit you guys watching this?" I'm like, "Weird shit." It's okay.
Weird shit.
It's fun.
Come on, it's called Murder Moose. Remember?
Yeah, it's a moose dressed up like Jason Voorhees, and it is what it is, man. He's murdering.
My wife just went to bed. She's like, "Oh, you're gonna watch Sky Sharks?" Oh yeah, I'm going to bed.
I'm going to bed. Screw you guys. I'm going home. So, Josh, this is the other thing we do, Katie. We usually, this is like the most planned out we've been for a while because we've had like guests the last like month.
Shit, is this my turn? Shit.
I mean,
wait.
It can't.
I wanted to do Vicious Fun, so let's do Vicious Fun.
Vicious Fun is a good one.
Yes.
It's a, you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
It's very Canadian too.
Okay.
Yeah, Canada.
Woo!
It's more on Shudder, Katie.
Canada.
It's more on Shudder. It's Canadian, man. There's some really good ones. If you do get is Shudder again. Psycho Gorman is
top of your list right there.
Okay.
I go down the street and I yell to people that I don't know, "Watch Psycho Gorman!" And they're like, "What? Who are you?"
They're
and
like,
I'm just like,
this man was yelling at me.
He said, "Watch this movie," and we've never heard of it.
I heard the word
and then they
psycho,
come back
so...
and find me. Yeah. We're the original Hunky Boys, though. They told us so, like, on social media. They gave us Valentine's Day cards.
Oh, that's
as well.
amazing.
Like, seriously, the movie follows us and loves us because we're original Hunky Boys. And you'll understand that when you see the movie.
Okay. I wrote it down. So, I mean, I got like a watch list now. I've got stuff to do.
Katie, you ever need something to watch, you can reach out to us. There's lots of it.
Okay.
So Vicious Fun, which is a kind of loser guy, ends up in a serial killers anonymous meeting, and insanity ensues, and it's really entertaining. So
it's my boys over at Black Fawn Films, so I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't said it, and we're really bad at it. If you guys want to go out and give us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you're listening, that would be helpful. We have our website, which is murdermoose.com. We have a Twitter, which is murdermoosepod. I've started trying to say Murder Moose, a horror podcast and everything, so it distincts it a little bit. It makes it more distinctive. But, like, I don't fucking know. Here we are. And I think that's all. So I think we're good till next week. And Katie, again, thank you so much. I really do enjoy your content, and I was like, I would love to like co-stream something someday with you, that if we ever find something. But
if we can find, I feel like a horror game for you and I would be like chef's kiss. But there's lots of good stuff, so let's find something. Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it, because I had a blast today. So
yeah, me too.
We will catch. You're more than welcome too, Josh.
What? No, I said I had a blast today.
Oh, I thought you meant...
join us. This is like the people making plans in front of someone else. Like, we could set something up and just...
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
No. Bye.
Josh!
You can join us as well.
No, we love you too. No. Josh is... You know what? It's funny, Katie. Josh doesn't do it as much anymore, but he used to stream Fortnite with his 6-year-old daughter, and it was the cutest fucking thing in the world. She's 7 now, but she was 6 when she did it, and she would just fucking headshot people for days, and Josh was like old man, like trying to get around, and it was always fucking adorable. And it always she
carries me.
Yeah, that's goals, honestly, because I'm bad at Fortnite. So
yeah, Katie, I've noticed patterns where you just keep finding games where chickens get murdered, and I don't know why
though.
that is.
I don't know what. There's a pattern. I understand. Sometimes I accidentally kill those chickens. I don't love it for me, but it keeps happening. So maybe the universe is trying to tell me a message. I'm not quite sure.
Maybe you should be going and raising chickens. That's what it is.
But they get murdered and everything. Why? What makes you think that that's what it's telling me? Like, you need to raise chickens.
So you get Katie Peters chicken nuggets? I don't know.
I feel like that's risky since most of the games the chickens end up dead somehow. So.
Yeah. It's like a walking, talking Baby Yoda meme at this point. That's really
as long as the dipping sauce
chicken nuggets.
Sweet and sour was always underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What, McDonald's sweet and sour?
Yes.
Or I'm all barbecue there. Like, the sweet and sour is like candy. It's
I know,
so
but that's
sweet.
probably why I like it. I used to dip my French fries in it too.
French fries in that is really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm all about the barbecue at McDonald's.
They
Actually,
started
usually
charging
eats
for that too. I don't know why this is like my old lady from the porch thing. They started charging
we're in
for
a sauce
sauces.
shortage.
Yeah, they used to just be like, "Hey, you
Like-
want a sauce?" You're like, "Yeah, I get this." And then if you're like, "Oh, can I get an extra one?" They're like, "That's 30 cents." And I'm just like, "That's a lot." But I'll pay it.
That's like the not that I support them, but those bastards over at Chick-fil-A were doing the same things this year where they were like limiting how
I've never
much
had
you can-
Chick-fil-A.
Me neither.
Don't I don't mind you being having religious views. That's not my problem. But when you start supporting like anti-trans like bills and stuff like that, yeah, they are a very, very like that's why they're not open on Sunday. It's all religion stuff, and it's just like so yeah. Okay, and on that positive note, we will be back next week with Vicious Fun.
Yes.
So thank you so much, guys. We'll catch you next week, and
Bye.
Bye.
That's also from Psycho Gorman.